All right, welcome to the Awake Experience. I'm here with Mike Ninomiya today, and I'm just so excited to talk to Mike all about Qigong, martial arts, Yin yoga. There's just so much that he can share with us today. But before we get started, I do want to tell you a little bit about Mike, so you know who you get to experience on the Awake Experience. For 34 years, Mike has explored martial arts and energy work as a pursuit of self-awareness. Mike represents a new generation of yin yoga from a deep and rooted lineage. He has made mind-body discipline his life for over 30 years and has taught martial arts and meditation internationally to people's ages 2 to 94 years old. A retired four-time world champion martial artist, Mike was drawn inward toward aspects of self-awareness, or spiritual martial arts as he calls it. Thanks for being on the show, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. I'm
Yeah.
happy to be here, and I really appreciate the movement that you're creating in the community, and I'm really appreciative to be a part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, well, we had you at one of the first Awake experiences here in Colorado, and it was so cool when you came into the room, and we had done yoga, meditation, some neurosculpting, and then we got to do Qigong.
Yeah.
It strikes me about you. You're such a calm dude, and I always would think a martial artist would be a little bit more intense.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about why I would have that preconception, or maybe like how martial artists, maybe they're different than what I think?
I think when we think about martial arts, it's understanding. Like, think of Mars is a fire, and understanding how to regulate fire, and I think on one spectrum it could just be engaging in combat, and you could be a really good martial artist. But it's the aspect of self-awareness that is, I think, over time, it naturally brings you inward to understanding how do you work with yourself and not fight yourself. So in regulation, it's fire could just eat up anything in its path, but it's, well, how do you control it and regulate it in a disciplined way? So.
Right on. Can you tell us your story about how you got into martial arts?
Yeah, I was born into a martial arts lineage, and both my parents are martial artists. My dad came to this country, to the U.S. in the 70s from Japan, and he settled in Denver and just wanted to bring authentic martial arts to this country in the 70s. And I was born in 79 and started training really young. And yeah, that's pretty much.
So what age was that when you started training?
About 2 years old.
You're a little guy.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So your dad was a martial artist. Was his dad? Is this a long lineage?
No, his dad liked martial arts, and he read him a lot of stories and stuff like that. But he was a carpenter and a mandarin farmer by trade.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So what role is, I'm so curious now, I see you as a yin yoga teacher, Qigong. How do those two worlds connect? You think of martial arts as a little more of the fighting side, at least that's how I see it. Talk to me more about how you got into yin yoga and Qigong and how that can benefit people.
Yeah, and I think through training in martial arts, I've realized that you don't just get hit in martial arts. You don't just get hit magically. Something happens, and if you can understand that all movement comes from stillness, and you can find that stillness within yourself, you will put yourself in the right place at the right time, and you could navigate conflict and essentially transcend it and be able to navigate. And that's really what martial arts is about. It's how can you navigate conflict? And obviously it's not intuitive at first when something comes at you that's potentially dangerous or fearful. we can cringe, we have different physical reactions. That's just very natural to keep us safe. And so the non-intuitive thing is, well, how do you work with it and face it, so that you can navigate it? The example that I give is like a door. The part of the door that's dangerous is the outer edge. If you get slammed by the door, that's the part that's you're nervous about. But if you go to the hinge of the door, that's what doesn't move, and that's actually the calm within the storm. In Yin Yoga, you would be in a shape on the ground, and you're stretching, but you're not actively stretching. And in that stillness, in that external stillness, you're navigating internally through layers of tension, concentric layers, and gradually you go to the heart of the storm, which is that magical stillness. And it really, it seems like a natural crossover, I guess, to understand how yin and martial arts are related, because you're working with gravity on an external sense, and internally you're working with yourself. You're not trying to do anything, you're just having to work with it. So in a nutshell, that's the connection with yin and martial arts.
Right on. So the Awake Experience, this show is all about teaching people how to have more peace in their lives, and just to have a better life in general. Um, can you just pretend someone out there might be going pretty fast in their life, like the typical American, jumping from one thing to the next, and that's what they've been told to do: stay busy, get a good job, make the money, get the nice car, get the house, just kind of cruising through life. And maybe they're successful in a business way, but they're not feeling much peace in their life. Can you talk about how Yin Yoga, Qigong, martial arts, how that could help maybe bring more peace and wellness into their life?
Yeah, and I think the analogy could be helpful, that you could definitely just go about your life in whatever capacity that you want, but at a certain level, if you don't have the awareness of what you're doing and how it's affecting you, and you're not in a relaxed state, you couldn't. Eventually, something's gonna snap, or something's gonna bring you back or make you aware in a really harsh way. So I think on some capacity, the universe will give that awareness in one way or another. And I think with those modalities, it's developing the awareness within, so that the universe doesn't have to hit you that hard. So with training in martial arts, you step away from the mindset of reactivity, which is I have to do something because it's hit or be hit, versus you're responsive. And when something comes at you, you can navigate it very accurately, and with a choice of how you're going to respond. And it takes a long time of a lot of training to be able to do that. In yin, it's the exact same thing. You can have reactions and move out of your capacity, or you can be aware of it and then have choices of how to respond in a sincere and with integrity. So I think that's how those modalities can, with training and repetition, develop that kind of awareness over time. And you might think of it as muscle memory, that you're doing something and then to the point where you don't need to do it. It's doing but not doing. And then in that state, you can get a lot accomplished, more than just trying and hitting your head against the wall kind of thing.
Sounds painful. What I heard there was react versus respond, maybe. So imagine your kid's pulling at you, and needs your attention. And if you're not grounded and you're not doing your qigong or meditation, you might just be like, what? Like react in a way that you don't want to react. But if you have a practice, I feel like we can respond more and have a little more emotional elegance in our life.
Yeah, that's right. And the foundation for martial arts and also qigong, it came from Taoist yoga. which it's a little bit, it's a different animal than from the Indian practice. And it's understanding that every organ has a virtue as well as a holding pattern. And it's sometimes those relationships are a double-edged sword. For instance, fear is the holding pattern of kidney energy, and the virtue is willpower. When you look at willpower and fear, sometimes the willpower gives you more strength to hold on or repress fear, to kind of push through something.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it can look like you're fearless, but you're trembling inside because every part of your body is trying to hold it back and hold it in, and you're not really facing that, holding pattern. So it's how do we work with it is really key, and understanding how they all kind of coordinate together.
So can you tell us the difference between Qigong and Tai Chi? A lot of people see those as the same thing or similar thing, but I believe they're a good bit different, right?
Yeah, and Qigong just means energy work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really big umbrella that it has a spectrum where there's martial Qigong, which means you could be doing any kind of martial art, and you're doing Qigong because you're moving your body in a way that's also moving energetically.
Mm-hmm.
You could be playing football, or you could be running, and if you have the sensibility of being aware of your breathing, and then how do you amplify your breathing, you're doing Qigong. And there might be at two different ends of the spectrum. So Qigong is a really big umbrella that has could just be energy work, is in a nutshell.
So Qigong's energy work.
Yes.
And then now Tai Chi, what's the difference between Tai Chi and Qigong?
Um, Tai Chi would maybe fall under the umbrella of Qigong, of a form of martial Qigong, where you're using intention, and you're using the physical body in a structural way so that you could feel what's happening and navigate it in that capacity.
Okay. So what differences would people see in their lives if they took on a Qigong practice? What do you think they'll see for changes if they maybe have an asana practice with yoga, and then they decide, I'm going to try out this Qigong thing I've been hearing about?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think every constitution is different, and sometimes the resistance to maybe a Taoist yoga practice could be that it's, you know, the approach is very different. You're not using like bandhas like in the same capacity, and it's very fluid. The external practice of it is very fluid. But I think on a deeper level, it's understanding where there's a holding or a blockage in your body, being aware of it first, and then being able to navigate and dissolve that holding pattern or release the charge associated with that. So Qigong really works with the physical body, the energy body, and also on a spiritual capacity to unfold or unravel a blockage. And the first thing is to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you don't have the capacity to change it with accuracy.
Okay. Just to pause there, I'm curious, how does someone know if they have a blockage energetically? Is that like when you feel tight in your belly or your chest or your
It could
maybe?
it could it could be that on a physical capacity. If you're working with really deep breathing, you're trying to take in deep breaths, and then with no tension, and then you notice that there's some kind of a holding. It could also just be that you have typical patterns of behavior like anger. If there's a pattern of anger, that would be being aware of it again is key. And then there's practices um, within Taoist yoga where you could start to work with dissolving anger.
Uh-huh.
So
So say you do the practice of Qigong, and you're moving the energy around your body, and you do start to work through some of those blockages. There's more flow in your energy, I imagine.
Mhm.
What happens to your body and mind? Like what's the benefits?
It's being more relaxed. What those holding patterns physically may exhibit is a blockage, a physical blockage that eventually, in Taoist, in Chinese medicine thought, a blockage eventually turns into a disease. So as you start to navigate more to relaxation in the body and more flow, you feel healthier. You deal with changes and things that don't go your way. You learn how to go with the flow. So that's one of the ideal uses in a general for a general population of qigong.
So it might be it sounds just as preventative as it is beneficial. Like it's just going to help you to stay healthy.
That's right. And you, if we talked about in martial arts, if you get hit, it's too late. And that's typically a reactive. I got hit, I'm going to hit back. When you can open up your channels and you start to feel what's happening, all of a sudden you're able to move in a way that is you're being in the right place at the right time, and you have a choice of what to do next. And as we take that analogy to health, that means we're being proactive, and we're paying attention and finding relaxation so that we can navigate when things happen or before they arise before they're really bad. So there's a lot of crossover and analogy to martial arts and to health and wellness in terms of what is qigong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when would you're a 4-time world champion martial artist. Can you tell us a little story about that path for you, what drew you to martial arts and that what that adventure was like? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who are into martial arts or are curious about trying it.
Yeah. Um, I think what drew me, I don't know. I know that it's always, I can't imagine not being without it because it's always been around me. And it's just a part of the way I associate and identify with life. I see everything as a martial arts. I don't know, like the interaction and how things move and how things coordinate and different energies kind of intermingle, and how do you stay relaxed when things are not going your way.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think you can be a really good martial artist but not the most balanced person. You can be very successful, but at the end of the day you might realize that you weren't living a life that you've been proud of, and you can't take any kind of trophies or awards or titles with you to the grave. So it's like, how do you give back, and how do you make a positive society that's not reinforcing conflict, it's being able to rise above, and and yeah, it's finding world peace maybe through martial arts is a lot of you can think of that as spiritual martial arts, and but it's not it doesn't necessitate. If you're a martial artist, it doesn't necessitate that you need to go along that path. But I think as you go deeper, we are naturally drawn there. Is I think.
That must be where the spiritual martial arts comes in for you, because some martial artists could be in it just for the maybe for the more aggressive physical side, but you bring
Yeah.
in the spiritual side. It sounds like it becomes a practice that is your whole life. Like it's not just in
That's
your.
that's right, and I think there's aspects of our personality as we open up to and tap into deeper conscious levels, that you can start to connect more clearly with other people, with other opportunities, and you tap into a greater potential. Um, and our body, just being in the body, is limited. It's limited, both in physical capacity and in terms of time. We're only here for a short amount of time, and if we just look at that little capacity, we can't go to the next level. And how do we influence and start to transform, to rise above that kind of limitation? Especially in martial arts, if you get hit or something bad is happening, it's so easy to cave into that cycle and to kind of give into it and just kind of, but it's the ability to kind of rise above and to figure out, what can you do if this is not possible, what's next, what's the next thing, and what's the next. So it's always looking for a state of potential and possibility. And when we look at that in a spiritual capacity, that means shining light into darkness. When things look bleak, was kind of moving forward and looking positively. So
Wow. So that's one of the huge benefits, it sounds like, is your training in martial arts, um, and you get hit and you could choose to react or respond.
mm-hmm.
And then you get in a fight with your spouse, a verbal fight, and you're getting hit by those words, say,
Yeah,
choose to react or respond. It sounds like to me with this spiritual martial arts practice that you're going to, what did you say? Respond, but shine more light into those dark places where we usually react
exactly.
in a non-skillful way.
Yeah, that's right.
Huh.
And it just, I think it just requires training, because it's not natural. When someone hits us with something that we don't like, it's, hey, I'm done, or I'm like this, or, you cave into the lower consciousness. But with training, I think you can always move forward and find a way. So that's what I think is some of the beautiful part of those practices of martial arts and understanding self with martial arts.
Okay. Now, so say someone said to you, "What this energy stuff? I'm not really a believer in it. I'm focused on, my physical body and working hard and that whole thing."
Yeah.
How would you explain to them how energy works and the benefits of getting a little more subtle,
hmm
with your life and your practices?
I guess on some capacity, I wouldn't think that you need to explain something to someone else.
Right.
Um, but I guess like if someone was to drive a car and they're driving the car, you don't need to explain, well, this is how the car works, and this is how you could navigate the car to be more smooth or something. It's just get in the car and drive it. But when something goes wrong with the car, you need to either take it in and there's a big repair,
Mm-hmm.
or you might notice a couple steps ahead and take some preventative measures. So I think it's up to the person to understand that there's a lot of internal mechanisms that can be physical, but also have connections to how we feel. And I think feeling is the language of energy. And sometimes when we talk about chi or prana, um, it gets a rap like it's very mystical, and you have to be doing something very specific to get access to it. But in reality, that's just what it means to feel. Are you happy? That's happy chi. Are you sad? That's sad chi. And if you sit long enough with those different kind of emotions, it has a tendency to manifest itself physically. You can kind of look at someone and get a feeling, oh, that's a happy person. That's someone that I'd like to be around. Or that's a sad person or an angry person. And we get all of these different cues energetically. And on a certain level, you don't really need to label it as chi or something it's not accessible. It's there. We just choose not to label it as that because it's something maybe more mystical or out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at it, it's all, we can't separate it, so to speak. It's just part of the human experience to be able to feel. And if we're not feeling, something's blocked or something's repressed. And it just allows you to feel more accurately. And then that has translation into the physical body. So.
Hmm. So we covered martial arts, Qigong, yin yoga, a lot of great practices
Mhm.
to bring more energy into your life. Besides those, Reiki comes to mind as well. And
Mm.
is Reiki part of Qigong when you would have healing energy? Or
Yeah, and Reiki is it's not necessarily labeled maybe under Qigong, but it comes from Japan. And it's using that kind of intentional, a higher vibration, something that you're connecting to a divine source, and then um, channeling that onto an individual or something that needs more attention. Um, and it's basically, where do we direct our attention? When we look at intention, we're looking at a belief system.
Mhm.
And a belief system is really foundational to developing transformation. If you don't believe in something, you typically won't manifest that belief. Um, so you have to really strongly believe, and the stronger you believe, it can manifest a change. So Reiki is the ability to get something so powerful that's not yours, but it's a universal energy, and then to be able to channel that in a healing capacity. So yeah, I think it's when we look at more intentional healing work, it's the belief system. Um, do you believe that, or are you just moving your hands around, or imagination? It has to be on the level of feeling. Um,
And
so
I imagine, I know most people must feel it because the other day at our workshop, we built the ball of energy,
mhm.
and man, I could feel it. And do most of your students say they can feel the energy?
Yeah, and to be transparent, I don't ask too much, because when you develop too much of an inquisitive, like, well, today it was, I just say, feel what you feel, and try not to um, question it too much. Just kind of notice it, um, because the belief system can kind of get a little bit skewed. Um,
Right.
you can will say, oh, today is different, and then you could kind of spiral to, well, yesterday it was feeling stronger, or the next day it was, and you can kind of, it plays a little bit of a mind game with your belief system. So it's just kind of coming into it with an empty mindset and just noticing what comes up that day, in terms of the practice. So
Right on.
yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Well, we're coming up on the end of the show here, and I always ask this question to all our guests. So, in all your life experience, not just with Enshin and all your martial arts and Qigong and Yin and all these things we talked about, but your entire life, all your experiences,
Hmm.
what are three things that people listening or watching could do today, like quick, actionable things that would improve their life, that would help them to live a mindful life and to be at more peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Three things, I think. One is to understand, or to be aware of breathing. Um, it's the one relationship that we have right from our, the start of our life to the last breath.
Mhm.
That's a relationship that we will cultivate from start to finish. And if you don't have the awareness of your breath, um, it's really the link between our consciousness and our physical body. So it's having an awareness of breath,
Mhm.
and the ability to relax is another thing. And I think when I say relax, it doesn't mean, I think the Western notion of relax means to kick back and have a few cocktails and just lounge out. I'm going to be on the beach and just kind of sit back like this. But relax, when we look at it more fully, it means to just be open and be, like a cat is, just to be really open to throw it up in the air and it's going to get on its feet and just move fluidly. And that's both physically and energetically when things are conflicting. How do we get more relaxed? The last thing maybe is to look at the belief system, looking at a purpose. What is the purpose? And developing a really strong relationship to a purpose. And that could just start out really small. Like today, I would like my purpose would be this, or maybe it's, if there's three aspects of a work, interpersonal, and then relationship with others. Maybe it's accomplishing, setting forth a belief, and then seeing it manifest. And then maybe you create a bigger goal, 1 week, 1 year, and then also being aware that that goal can be flexible, so not to get too stiff with your belief system, but having a strong belief and a guidance system it will help really to pull out of tough times. I think.
I agree. So the three life-changing elements here: aware of your breathing, relax, just fluidity in your energy and your physical body, and know your purpose. And
Know the purpose.
you can always click back into that to stay on track.
That's right.
Now, Mike, where can people go to learn more about energy work, martial arts? Is there any books you'd recommend or resources on the web? Or
I'd suggest to find a really knowledgeable teacher, and I would look at the students and look in terms of maybe people that have been around that person for a longer amount of time. What kind of transformation has occurred? Are the students someone that you would want to emulate, or the teacher? Obviously, you have your own path, but are they exhibiting a way about them that is something that it attracts you? Because again, that's the belief system. So I think, just look, being inquisitive and just going with the gut feeling, and knowing that you are the greatest teacher. Everything that you've been through, no one else has been through, and it's understanding whatever theory, whatever book you may read. It's, well, how does that make sense to me? How does that anchor from my own personal experiences? And that's what makes maybe a book knowledge versus wisdom. So whatever book may be out there is to kind of go forth and embody it. It's not just theoretical. So the ability to anchor your own experiences and then into a system. I'm developing a website called Yinjas. It's a play on ninja, but it's YINJAS. And that it's looking at a complete system of self-cultivation, of physical care, being aware of energy. And it's something that I've been developing and trainings and stuff like that. With martial arts. Sorry?
Is that live right now, that website?
Yes, the website's live.
And that's Yinjas, so YINGAS.com?
J like John.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so think of ninja.
Right.
And it's a yinja. And then the style of is called Enshin, means heart of the circle. And my dad developed that style. So it's, but I can only speak of what I've been, what I'm involved in. So, and there's a lot of other people that are doing great things. So I think just, but you have to kind of know, I want to speak of what I've been encountered and what I've experienced. So I can't speak outside that.
A lot of people who listen to this or watch it on YouTube from all over the country or world. But if you're lucky enough to live here in Colorado, is there an opportunity to practice locally with you here in Colorado?
Yeah, I teach yin and self-cultivation at some local studios here in Denver. I do trainings around the country and different parts of the world. And that's all on the Yinja's website. And also, martial arts is it's at our headquarters. It's located here in Denver, and we have about 90 branches around the world. And the style is all over. So there's people are practicing Enshin in different countries and states and stuff like that. So
Wow. So you can connect anywhere in the world pretty much with this tradition of Enshin.
that's right. Yeah, there's a lot of friends practicing.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate your time. Everyone, check out yinjas.com and learn more about Mike there. And thanks for tuning in to the Awake Experience today. Have a great
Thank
day,
you.
Mike.
Thank you.